192 years business.
Yes.
3 million guitars.
Once you hit a certain point in your career and you could afford a Martin, because to a lot of people it is an aspirational guitar.
Oh my gosh, of course.
I mean, one of the most common questions we get is, why does a Martin cost so much? You know, we're building over 100,000 guitars a year, but the quality of them, the sound of them is just as good as the company's ever built. And that's really what we want to do.
But when you go into writers' rounds and you go into songwriter rooms and the craftsmen and the people in the industry that build it from the ground up, 80–90% of them are playing a Martin. So why is that? All right, folks, welcome back to a very, very special episode of Backstage Bucks County. We are here in Nazareth, Pennsylvania at the absolutely legendary CF Martin and Company Guitar Factory, here with our very new and very good friend, Mr. Jason Ahner. Jason,
hey.
Awesome to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, so many questions for you.
Okay.
I mean, you've been doing this now for 14 years.
Yeah, I've been with the company 14 years.
Amazing. So you do a ton of content for the company. You're sort of, in a lot of ways, people see you on YouTube and you're almost that gap bridging the legacy and the heritage to the new and the innovative, the innovative stuff. I want to throw a couple numbers at you.
Okay.
Stats about Martin that people may not know. 192 years in business.
Yes. Well, actually 193 this year.
Did we recently turn?
Yeah, because it's 2026, 1833 to 2026, so we're at 193 now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So 193, happy birthday. 3 million guitars.
Yep.
We just surpassed that pretty recently, right?
Yeah, we built serial number 3 million last year. It was unveiled at the NAMM show in Anaheim 2025.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So just touring the facility and the museum prior to coming here, there's so much history, so much legacy here, as everybody knows. I heard one of the coolest quotes. I was watching an interview on Billy Strings, who you made a custom artist guitar for. Legend. I mean, prodigy, right? He had one of the coolest lines. He said, being at Martin is almost as American as baseball. Yeah. And do you feel that coming into work every day, just being here? Is that woven into the fabric of what it means to work here? Yeah,
I mean, I think so, because what we're building here, it's known worldwide. And if you go back to the origins of how we got here, back in the 1840s, C.F. Martin Sr. built what was considered the first truly American guitar, where he was blending these ideas from Germany, Spain, and they all came together when he was in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, you get that sense when you come to work every day.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing just walking around and living in the area. We've been really fortunate as artists to be able to travel around the country and, play a lot of music, see a lot of places, tell a lot of stories. And there's always something, especially in Nashville, that you see people playing on bars everywhere on stages. And, the swath of guitars and the gear they use is pretty all over the place. They're pretty much bar bands. But when you go into writers' rounds and you go into songwriter rooms and the craftsmen and the people in the industry that build it from the ground up, 80–90% of them are playing a Martin. So why is that?
I mean, you play them.
Yeah.
It's because the way they sound, the way they play. And it's one of those things that Martin has gotten such a reputation with pretty much all genres of music. And that's because people would buy them because of the way they sounded. I mean, you wanted that. Once you hit a certain point in your career and you could afford a Martin, because to a lot of people it is an aspirational guitar.
Oh my gosh, of course.
I mean, one of the most common questions we get is, why does a Martin cost so much? And then people come here and do the tour and they're like, oh, I see why.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. And it's not that Martin was giving anybody guitars. It's, that's something the company didn't do. It was, people would play them and then hear somebody else playing them and that's the sound that I want.
Yeah.
And so it just caught on.
Yeah, I was recently watching an interview with, with Chris, the current CEO. He had a really cool point, because he said a couple years back, we were trying to revamp the artist program and just kind of rethink what it meant. And he mentioned people coming to him just saying, we have to develop this new artist program, meaning we just have to give guitars away. And he kind of paused and said, maybe that's not the only way that we can do this, because we've proven that there's a ton of value to these guitars and those relationships. So how did that kind of shape, the team's vision for how you handle the artist relations now?
Yeah, because the way when we started the Artist Relations program, the idea behind it was the artist would pick a charity of their choice for the proceeds to go to. So not only, if you were a fan of a specific artist, you could get a guitar that they helped design, but whatever the proceeds were would go to, a charity, which is a win-win.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it's, it's the same way now. When we start building a guitar with an artist, we have them pick a charity that they want the proceeds to go to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure if I knew that. So
Yep.
anytime, you're building for Ed Sheeran, John Mayer, any of these, modern things. So I didn't realize that was a core component of that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not, obviously being a company, you want to make as much profits as possible.
Sure, yeah.
But still, at a certain point, it's like, we have the Martin Guitar Charitable Foundation that was founded in 1996. So for Chris, having the charitable contribution be part of it, it's just something that kind of goes hand in hand with our own foundation.
Yeah.
It's just an important, part of who the company is.
That's amazing because, another video I saw of Chris, like one of the artist programs goes all the way back to Gene Autry.
Yeah.
And the 1933 first, Project 91 guitar.
Yeah.
And the relationship that not only Martin has with Gene Autry going back, almost 100 years, but to be able to call Gene's wife, to have a conversation with her, to say, hey, how do we want to approach, this kind of thing? So is that sort of the genesis of how Project 91 happened? And
because we looked at it, we had some Brazilian rosewood that we wanted to use on some special guitars. And, so the idea was brought up that, we should try to not replicate exactly, but make them as closely as possible to the original 91 guitars. And of course, Gene Autry's was the first that was built.
Right.
And, and so going off of Gene's, all the way up to the 91, we're just building these, Brazilian rosewood, hide glue, solid pearl, just like they would have been built. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk tone woods for a second, because we were just talking about this before. So obviously the wood supply for certain things like Brazilian rosewood and these really legacy woods, probably a lot harder to get now than it was 100 years ago. How do you sort of approach sourcing and looking for, ways to find those traditional woods today?
Brazilian rosewood's the most difficult, just because we only use pre-CITES certified, so that means it would have to be harvested prior to 1992.
Okay.
So there's, times where people are sitting on, these stockpiles of wood, and we'll find out and then purchase it. But a lot of the woods that we use, they're still covered by CITES or, endangered in some aspects. And so we have wood buyers that travel around the world, go to these locations, go to the sawmills and select the wood that we want, or sometimes go into forest and actually select the trees.
Wow.
But also on top of that, we also replant these forests, East Indian rosewood, mahogany, all those. We, take the initiative because we know, and really when you come down to the guitar industry, very little of those woods went to the guitar industry. But still, we know
selfishly you think like all the wood, the Brazilian rosewood's going to guitars.
It all didn't go to D28s and D45s. Mostly went to like furniture and things like that.
Right. What a waste for the furniture.
Yeah. But, we look at forestation and, because we want to use woods that come from sustainable forest. Whereas really, they cut down a certain section of the forest, and the idea is 20 years later, because these forests, they're huge, another 20 years when they come back, that section will be regrown enough that it can be harvested again.
Wow, okay.
And so we're helping to replant those forests.
That's amazing. So I was going to ask you, how long would it take for, a rosewood tree or something like that to grow back?
Yeah, typically, a lot of that old growth is hundreds of years old. Like a lot of the sinker mahogany we use, those are, the trees were probably already a couple hundred years old, and they've been in rivers for 100 to 200 years.
Yeah.
So you can't really get to that, but if you can let, a forest like mahogany, rosewood, grow for 20, 30 years, it's pretty substantial, and you should be able to get large enough sections to be able to build guitars out of it.
Yeah. And you guys have done a really good job, looking elsewhere and being innovative.
Yeah.
You're using koas and ovankals and other, modern materials, if you want to call them that, but looking, in different areas of the world, really, for these woods.
Yeah.
How much of today's production is looking backward versus looking at alternatives and trying to get the same sound out of something new?
Well, obviously with the heritage that we have, we do have to use a lot of that in what we build, but we're always looking to be innovative, looking forward. Like with our inception models, we're using maple and walnut, domestic hardwoods that, those trees grow a lot quicker than the tropical hardwoods. But one of the issues is, we've used maple in the past. You said you owned a D60.
I owned a D60 for a number of years.
And it doesn't, a D60 doesn't quite sound like a D18 or a D28.
Very different.
So with the inception models, we kind of knew what we wanted the guitar to sound like and built kind of the guitar around that sound. That's, we used the sonic channels in the bracing, a lot of different things. And because of our heritage and because we used rosewood and mahogany, ebony for so long, it's kind of hard to convince people that, maple and walnut might sound just as good, or, other woods like Cirrus or, sapele as alternatives. So it's one of the things that we need to do is to educate guitar buyers that, you don't have to get a guitar that's built for mahogany or rosewood. You can, get a guitar that sounds just as good and might be built for something.
Yeah, there's amazing guitars out there that aren't pre-war D18s.
Exactly.
What's cool is even sapele and some of these other modern woods, are when you guys are thinking innovation and you said something really cool. It's almost like a chef having all these ingredients and sounds. But you're thinking tones. So how does that work here? Like, are you sitting and trying to chase a certain tone or a certain sound, or are you sort of at the mercy of the materials that you can source to try to come up with something that's unique? Where does that start from?
Well, we have a great R&D department, great instrument design department, and a lot of it, the Martin sound. Martin's so famous for the tone we get from our guitars, and that's kind of the starting point with a lot of what we do. Obviously, like with the SC models, that's definitely going to sound different than, a Dreadnought.
The 13s, they're awesome. They're super innovative. They're great.
Koa back and sides.
Very comfortable to play too.
Yeah, it's a veneer, fine Koa veneer, so you get that great look, but it's, a little easier on the pocketbook, because that helps bring the cost down. But, we look at different things that, we want the guitar to sound like a Martin as much as possible. So we look to build around that sound, and with all of the work that we've done, we know where to start. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. But there's definitely projects where, we've tried and might not have been as successful as we wanted to.
Sure, yeah.
But that's pretty much
the cost of innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny you say kind of that Martin sound is like the thing that keeps us grounded, But what's amazing to me is you can pick up off the shelf 5 different brands of guitar, close your eyes, and you can almost be certain of which one is the Martin.
Yeah.
I can't explain it. I don't even know if you can explain it, but take a shot at it.
It's just something special. It's kind of the formula, like you said, the recipe.
Yeah.
We created so long ago for the, what a lot of people think is the perfect guitar. And it's just adding little, to a recipe. You might add some spices here or there to perfect the taste. And it's just doing things that guitar players want, scalloping braces, reshaping the neck, doing all these little things that help make what is a perfect guitar now. It's not, the guitar taste change, players want different neck profiles, different nut width. And that's why we're constantly looking at that. We have to, cater to what guitar players want because we're building the guitars for them.
Right.
So it's just kind of that, perfecting that recipe of what the perfect sound is, the perfect feel.
It's almost impossible to be this good for something for this long. You look at just the American heritage brands in any industry. You guys have perfected the one thing, the acoustic guitar, the innovators of it, but to sustain that over almost 200 years is insane.
And it's not like we're tooting our own horn. We're getting feedback from our dealers and from consumers that, they're telling us, we're building over 100,000 guitars a year. But the quality of them, the sound of them is just as good as the company's ever built. And that's really what we want to do.
Yeah. And even, I'll be very honest, like I've owned overseas, manufactured Martins, and they're, in a lot of ways, they're just as good. They still have that Martin thing to them. And I don't understand for the life of me how you can do that with quality control and, personnel. It's gotta be hard.
Well, if you went to our factory in Navajo, Mexico, where we build our Road series, our X series, our Little Martins, and didn't know where you were, and you knew what the factory here looked like, you would think you were in our factory because the way it's laid out, the machinery, the materials, everything comes from our factory. The quality assurance processes are the same. So it's not like, we're trying to skimp on anything.
Right.
It's just, we're using some alternative materials there, like HPL or different tone woods that,
Sure.
Don't cost as much as rosewoods or mahoganies.
Yeah. No, it's been really cool to watch too. And, my wife and I both, we saw Ed Sheeran a couple years ago at Lincoln Financial Field.
Oh, yeah.
The most tickets ever sold in Eagle Stadium. Go Birds.
Yep, go Birds.
I was floored. He has, his signature series Martin that he's playing, which is, a single O maybe size.
Well, at that point, I think he might have been playing a custom single O we built for him. Yeah.
But it was tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a couch guitar.
Yep.
And he filled up 85,000 people from a stage, doing what he does.
Yeah.
But how has that series with the X, with Ed Sheeran and Shawn Mendes and some of the smaller body overseas made stuff, has that opened you up to kind of a younger demographic, a new audience with Martin guitar?
I mean, definitely, because there's all of the players out there that have been playing Martins for decades that know Martin's a great guitar, but it's also getting the new guitarist to buy in to kind of they say drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And it's artists that come out like Ed Sheeran, even Olivia Rodrigo now, Sabrina Carpenter. They're they're playing Martins, so it's kind of one of those things that, because I know when I started playing guitar, I looked to what the musicians I like, what instruments they were playing.
Who were some of those people for you?
I mean, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. He's my favorite musician of all time, but also, Neil Young. And that's really, the Martin thing with Neil Young with his
the Laurel
D45.
Canyon and everything.
Yeah, his D28, and then Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page playing a D28. So you look at all these different musicians, and it's kind of like, oh, they're playing that. I want to play that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of with, new music, to get as many musicians as possible. And then, you have musicians like Post Malone.
Yeah.
That, he crosses over, he's doing country albums now. He's playing Martins. He played, at the Super Bowl last year, was America the Beautiful, with his D28. So, when fans tune in and see that, it's kind of, there's still that connection with Martin and pretty much any age group.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure at times throughout the career, it's been hard not to sell out or follow a trend, or, we got into electrics for a little while, but it seems like, every so often you guys might test something, but not do it jumping into the deep end. It's like, we'll try a tone wood or try a different body style or something, but where does that come from? Leadership or Chris, or, over time? Yeah,
I mean, it comes from, different areas of the company. A lot of them can be Chris's idea, or Thomas, our current CEO.
Sure, yeah.
An idea his, and it's just one of those things that, whether it's innovation or just educating people on different types of tone woods, or, our R&D team comes up with things, and we just want to try something new, try to be different. I mean, the company's done that throughout, its history.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be the company we are today without C.F. Martin Sr. experimenting with X-bracing, and
of course,
pretty much that becomes the standard for the acoustic guitar industry. So that's kind of why the company's done, arch tops in the 1930s, and, the electric guitars starting in the late 50s, and then the solid body electrics, and why we do the SC and the Inception, and these things that, a lot of people look at Martin, they want their flat top acoustic guitar, but don't realize they might be able to get something different that might work for them, when they're doing, because say you're a musician, you can only afford one guitar. You want an acoustic and an electric. Well, that's where the SC comes in. Right. Because you can play it, kind of both ways.
I remember when that first came out, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago?
2020, Yep.
So I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, wow, Martin's really making a statement with this thing. Because as a gigging guitar player, I was like, man, I don't now have to either put an LR Baggs pickup in or drop the acoustic and pick up an electric. How calculated was that decision for you guys to launch that SC13?
I mean, that was the reasoning behind it. We wanted a guitar that, well, one, if you needed two guitars, there was one guitar for you to play for two different purposes. Two, we wanted something that electric guitar players, because you mentioned it, like writers groups and things like that. A lot of times when people are writing, they'll pick up their acoustic, they'll pick up a Martin. And for electric guitar players, a lot of the times, the strings are heavy, the action's high compared to my electric. But the SC, we have custom light strings on it, the action's lower, so we wanted it to be the perfect go-between an electric and an acoustic. And I mean, it became the best-selling acoustic electric of 2020.
And at an amazing price point. It's not going to break the bank.
No,
it seems very entry level price wise, but
and then we do the standard series stuff in here, Nazareth. So if you want an SC28 or an SC18, we have those, and we were doing a custom shop model. So we have it kind of all through, the price points.
Yeah. So you mentioned strings. So recently, a couple years ago, you guys really went whole hog into the string business.
Yeah.
And now you have, Jason Isbell and all these other signature strings. How's that going for you so far?
Great. I mean, because we feel we build the best guitars in the world, and we also want the best strings to go with them. So it's really, Martin has experimented with manufacturing strings pretty much since the 1830s. But in 1970, when Frank Martin, who's leading the company, bought the Darko String Company, eventually became Martin Strings.
Yeah.
That was the first time the company had the large capability to build strings of their own. And so that's another area where we're constantly looking to innovate, like with our era strings. You mentioned Jason Isbell.
Yeah.
And of course, we've been doing Clapton strings for years now. We have Tony Rice. We have Tommy Emmanuel's signature set. So there's all these different artists that turn to Martin Strings for their guitars, whether they're playing a Martin or not.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, because when a lot of people think of our strings, they're like, oh, you can only put those on a Martin. But it's like, no, we make strings for every guitar.
Do anything.
Yeah, we have our Darko line for electric guitar players. So we have pretty much strings for everything that needs strings. Ukuleles, mandolins, banjos, guitars, yeah, you name it.
Anything you can bring in.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. The cool thing before the show started, we were just taking a quick tour of the museum, and you're showing us some unbelievable pieces.
Yeah.
And we were kind of saying, a lot of these seem to be either sitting in someone's home or a garage, or, Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts who just passed, is, at auction right now. Are a lot of those families or pieces with these heirlooms or purchases coming to you directly, or are you having to seek them out to bring them back to the museum?
It's a combination. We'll get a lot of inquiries in customer service, or I'll get phone calls. People like, I have, this guitar, I have this guitar. Or, a lot of times when it is something like a pre-war D45 or a D28, people have known what those are and how significant the value is for decades. So a lot of times those are in collections. And when those collections come to auction, that's when we look at those. But every once in a while, we'll have one turn up, like we had a 1939 00042, which is the serial number directly after one that Eric Clapton owned.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was just sitting under somebody's bed for decades, and we purchased it from the family.
How often does that happen?
That doesn't happen too often, yeah. A lot of the times we'll get things that we already have for our collection, or, guitars that are cool but aren't quite as valuable as that.
Yeah.
But because a lot of the times the really valuable guitars end up at shops that know, vintage guitar shops, or at auctions.
Yeah, Grunes, Carter.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Yeah.
Emerald City and all those that are really in that vintage guitar business.
For sure. So talk to me about custom shop, because you and I sat down and I was, in my mind, I've had my custom shop guitar built out, and every time I think I land on it, I do something like this and I see it takes a turn because I get excited about something new. If you were to build your perfect custom shop, Martin, take me through the entire thing. What are you building?
Oh boy, that's a tough one, because it's constantly changing. So we were talking before, and I said I prefer mahogany and dreadnoughts and rosewood in triple O's or OMs. But I really love the look of Koa. Just aesthetically, it's
so beautiful.
To me. Yeah, exactly. So I think I'd probably do something with Koa back and sides. Maybe because I have a triple O, maybe an OM, something with a long scale.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of pearl on the body. I like pearl on the fingerboard, so I would do like 45 snowflakes on the fingerboard.
Love the snowflake, yeah.
And then herringbone top trim. And then I came up with my own inlay I'd want to do for the top, which kind of...
What would it be?
It combines the CF Martin Sr., the CF Martin block logo with the Torch logo.
Oh, man.
So something
really
different,
cool.
Yeah.
Regular headstock slotted? What do you do?
I would probably do a regular, because I know from... they're cool, the slotted headstock, but they're a lot...
You have to restring it?
Yeah, they're a lot tougher to restring.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
What kind of tuners are you going to do?
Probably like a Waverly Chrome, butterbean knob, open gear. It's hard. It's hard to beat the quality of Waverly tuners.
Those butterbeans. There's something to it in the. I don't know. Again, a super nerd thing, but there's some kind of texture to it that just makes it feel like vintage almost.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Grover, the 102Cs are nice. I really like the way they function, but
super smooth.
Yeah, aesthetic-wise, the Waverlys, they just look like those Grover G98s from the 30s that Martin used.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my overall, you just had showed me one. It was one of the first dreads ever built, slope shoulder. I would definitely do mahogany back and sides. Sinker probably if we could find it or source it somewhere.
We have it. We have it. So.
I'm sure you do somewhere. Spruce top. I'm the same as you. I love the slotted headstock look. I think it's beautiful, but a pain to restring if you're playing a show. You're almost cooked at that point. At least I am. But yeah, there's something about that slope shoulder, old school dread. There's a different tone to it. There's a different feel to it. And when you guys switched from that, there were really only a couple of years that you were making slope shoulder versus more the squared off shoulder, right?
Yeah, I mean, because Martin started building the Dreadnought for Dittston in 1916, but they didn't really build that many. You're talking probably less than 40 guitars in total.
That's it.
Yeah, 1916 to 1930, then Dittston goes out of business. Then Martin starts building the Dreadnought under its own name, and then you see the D18 and the D28 come out. And then demand, Martin wasn't quite sure what to do with it because they weren't selling that great. There were certain players that wanted it, but then they saw the success of the OM28 and 14 fret models. And, jazz was big. And jazz, arch top guitars used in jazz had a slimmer neck, longer neck. And so they decided, you know what, let's try the 14 fret neck on Dreadnoughts. And they did that in 1934, and that's when they really take off.
Yeah.
But we do have it's over in our distribution center right now in our cage of the guitars that are on display in our collection. We have a 1933 D28 that's a 12 fret slope shoulder with a solid headstock.
Oh man.
So that might be something.
That might be the prototype for
me.
When you're trying to think about reaching, I know we talked a little bit about kind of younger generation right now. One of the coolest things that I saw was one of your oldest distributor relationships is in Hong Kong, right?
Oh yeah, Kurosawa. Yeah, they're a distributor in Tokyo.
That's amazing.
In Japan.
You think of Martin as such a heritage Americana thing.
Yeah.
But the global reach, I mean, one of your oldest distributor relationships and best is in Hong Kong, right?
Well, it's in Tokyo.
Or Tokyo.
Tokyo, Kurosawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Martin guitar is big worldwide. And it's one of those things, it's kind of like a universal language. You can go to all these other countries and say D28 and everybody knows what you're talking about.
That's crazy. The ubiquity of that is nuts.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Japan is our largest market outside of the US. I know, we have a distributor in the UK, Spain, Italy, all over. But I mean, Martin guitars are huge in Japan. And also ukuleles are big there too. So our distributor, we've had that great relationship with them for, I think it's close to 50 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Are they just more ingrained with music education as kids, putting guitars and ukuleles in kids' hands? Or why do you think that is?
I mean, I think that's part of it, but also they love the quality of Martin and the longevity of the company and the artists that have played Martins. Eric Clapton's huge in Japan. John Mayer's huge in Japan.
Yeah.
So for
I'm sure
artists
Ed Sheeran and others. Yeah.
Sure. And so they have their own musicians that I was mentioning earlier. That I did there was this musician named Masahara Fukuyama, who is hugely popular in Japan. He's an artist. He's an actor, and we had a Japanese television network come and do a documentary on his pre-war D45 that was being repaired here. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of the way that, they look at these musicians and the instruments, it's in such high regard. And they know the craftsmanship that Martin has brought for almost 2 centuries now.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that the reach, because, you have, if you follow the lineage all the way back, you have the guitar that kind of shaped the sound of so many different moments in history in the US. But to think about people in Japan and, all over the world sitting there playing an acoustic guitar, playing folk music with Joan Baez or something. Yeah. It just blows your mind to think the reach and the depth of how interested people are in not only the history, but the quality of the instrument.
And recently I found, because Martin's been selling guitars to in Australia for 100 years, over 100 years. And I think it was from 1921, I found the first order that the distributor in Melbourne placed. Yeah.
No kidding.
Just the fact that, because we think about it now, you're putting things on container ships and going all over. But even back then,
you're shipping dreadnoughts on dreadnoughts to go
exactly.
around the world.
Yeah. Just we think everything is so much more efficient now. I mean, I think about back in the 1800s before the railroad, when Martin was shipping via stagecoach, and like they were reaching New Orleans. I mean, back then in the 1850s, that was a big milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
And then you think 70 years later, they're already selling in Australia.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'm fascinated to learn, and hopefully we get to do a quick tour and kind of see the factory, but do you have it down to a science of how many minutes or hours or whatever that it takes to make each specific instrument?
I know there's calculations on the specific steps, like how long it should take you to polish a body, how long it should take you to like inlay the fingerboard, depending on what you're doing. I don't know those calculations. Our QA department handles that.
Awesome.
But yeah, I know there's specific time markers that should be met for each step.
Yeah, because I remember, during COVID, when obviously the world shuts down, everyone wants to pick up a new hobby.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Everyone wants to learn how to play the guitar.
Yep.
And I remember seeing Chris saying that like there was obviously a boom then, but you guys sold maybe 500,000 guitars in that really short window.
Yeah.
Period of time. Like, how did you keep up with demand at that point?
I mean, that's the thing. It's, we were shut down for a while here because of COVID, and then when we reopened, it was like, all hands on deck. We, trying to build. But one of the things that Martin will never do is we will never just build to build. We need the quality to be there. We're not going to ship a guitar that we don't think is first class. So that's kind of where, the difficulty comes from a lot, the back orders. And it's something that the company's known for years. Like back in the 1950s, because of how popular folk music, rock was, if you would have went into a Martin dealer back then and ordered a D28, they would have told you to come back in 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's why, the company looked to expand. They built this factory in 1964, and we look at innovation, robotics, CNC. How can we build as efficiently as possible and still get the end result we want?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, in the innovation category, now that you mentioned it, for us as songwriters, AI has disrupted everything. We're not seeing demos now being passed to our producers and other, guys kind of in the studio, the engineers. We just had a conversation the other day with our buddy Smith Curry, who's in Nashville, and he said about 90% of the demos we're getting today are AI.
Really?
So people are just going on AI, either writing or having AI write the song, produce an AI demo for them, and then they're sending him, it's not to a click, there's no instruments, there's like fragmented lyrics to it. Man. But, it's kind of spawning this whole generation of people that think they're songwriters by using AI. So how much of that scares the crap out of you versus like, we're just going to do what we do here and just be who we are? I
mean, AI... it can give you a picture of a Martin guitar, but it can't build you a Martin guitar.
Very true.
So that we're comfortable with, but it comes down to a lot of messaging, the way people are using certain tools. But so obviously, one of the things that we deal with is counterfeit guitars.
Oh, I'm sure.
And using AI and to make these generative images, that might not be authentic Martin. That's something that we look at, and that's kind of scary. But as far as the actual building, we're pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I don't imagine robots and AI kind of taking over the factory. So innovation in general, other than tone woods, what are some things on the horizon for Martin right now that you're thinking about?
I mean, we're always looking at, different neck supports, carbon fiber, bridge plates, things like that. So it's kind of like, there's really no limits.
Yeah.
If we find something that we think is going to work, we're going to, experiment with it. And then if we get the end result we want, we're going to use it.
Yeah.
And that's why you see like the modern deluxe, we use different types of glue. We use the carbon fiber bridge plate. We use different truss rods in those. And then it all comes down to, innovation and kind of expanding on what we do and not just kind of settling, oh yeah, we're going to build another D28.
Yeah.
No, but even though when we do build another D28, it's great, we want to build, something different because, you're a guitar player. Pretty much any guitar player out there, if it's their choice, they own more than one guitar.
It's impossible not to.
Yeah, exactly.
At least that's what I tell my wife.
Yeah,
like, this is an addiction that I'm facing. I got to let it play its course. But
it's like, how is that one different from this one?
Oh,
and then
how much time you got?
You're trying to go into the explanation, and and that's kind of, there's different needs, whether you want to play fingerstyle, whether you want to flat pick, whether you want to just sit on your couch and strum. So we want to make sure we have something, up and down what everybody's needs might be. And to look at, how is that product different than what we were building 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah. I want to talk really quickly about Project 91.
Okay.
I think this is an unbelievably cool way to not only look back and do what you guys do best.
Yeah.
I mean, you're American as baseball, according to Billy Strings. But it also kind of forces you to, there was a really cool thing that you guys put out, and the 3 components of past, present, and future.
Yeah.
And Chris said it best. It was really cool. And it's like the reason why we put CF Martin and Company on the headstock is for those components, because it's the company and the people building these things. And he said it so beautifully. But I want to get, your take on what does Project 91 really mean, and what do you want people to know about why we're doing this?
Well, I mean, obviously, pre-war, anybody that knows vintage acoustic guitars, pre-war D45s are probably the most collectible out there.
Yeah. And
it's just one of those things. There are so few built, only the 91, and just getting. Not everybody can pay $500, $600, who knows, $700,000. Just the prices keep going up for these guitars, and just making the awareness that Martin did build these. We're almost 100 years ago they started, and we're still continuing that legacy. And we can still build a guitar the way we did back then, but for the current player, for the current collector, and just telling the story of we haven't lost that craftsmanship. These guitars were built great back in the 1930s and 1940s, but we can build them just as great now. The employees that work here...
With the old rosewood that's still sitting back there.
Yeah, exactly. The employees that work here now are just as skilled as the employees were 90 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to think, because just kind of looking through the Gene Autry one and some of the others, it was cool to see kind of the progression of how things changed, and some wanted pearl inlays and doing more 45 style versus more old school, the slope shoulder versus more squared off. So what's the ultimate goal for Project 91, other than telling the story? Is it, is there something following that up, or is this kind of like the glue between past and present?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate culmination is the 200th anniversary of the company.
Yeah.
Because this is, it's a multi-year project, and we're only 7 years away now from that milestone. What
do we have planned for that?
Well, we're working on it. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. Last couple things I wanted to talk about. I've owned several signature series artist guitars. So I've had the 0028 EC Eric Clapton. Yeah. I've loved the OMJM, but I went with the Eric Clapton just because it had a different neck profile. My current everyday playing Martin is the M6 Johnny Marr. So shout out to Johnny Marr.
Yeah.
So when you guys are thinking about what artists to work with and giving them the platform to be able to build their own thing, just tell people who don't know how that process works,
Well, I mean, we look at artists that historically have played Martins throughout their career. We can go to every, hot artist now, then be like, hey, you want a signature model? But we want to go with a known guitarist and someone that we know has played Martins for an extended period of time.
Sure.
So it's kind of a lot of that longevity factor. And then obviously we want their input on the guitar, because their name's going to be on it too. It's not only going to say Martin, it's going to have that interior label or the signature and pearl that's going to have their name on it.
Yeah.
So we want it to be the ultimate guitar for them and hopefully for their fans.
Right. How does that relationship kind of carry over? Just as a fan of all these guys that, I own some of their guitars, a lot of times are they out kind of helping you guys promote and sell that guitar? Like, what does the marketing effort look like after?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have our own internal efforts, but I mean, a lot of times, we'll have the artists come in and do content with us. Like you mentioned Billy Strings, he came here, we did videos at our North Street factory.
Yep.
Because, they want these guitars to be as successful as we want them to be. And so a lot of times they will do that, on their social media channels, or, even at concerts, check out my new signature Martin.
Sure, yeah.
And, it's key for, not only for us, but for them to get the word out. Hey, because that's kind of like a lot of guitars. That's the ultimate accomplishment. You have your own signature guitar.
I mean, that's like Hall of Fame level for any career, throwing the banner in the rafters. Who's one artist out there that you love that isn't a Martin artist yet, that has a signature model that you'd love to see in one?
I mean, I've wanted a Neil Young signature model for a long time. Man. Yeah, just because, just listening to him for so long, and the fact that he's played, so many Martins throughout his career, and
that Heart of Gold tone. Is
it
sends chills down your spine.
Yep. So hopefully one of these days we'll get that.
What do you think you would build?
I don't know, because he's played, 45s, 18s, 28s, and he's played them, pretty much all dreadnoughts though. So I would definitely know it would be a D body. So probably, I think he'd probably do like a D28, because one of his favorite guitars is his D28 that Hank Williams used to own. So maybe something, based on that.
What year was that? Do you know?
Pretty sure it was a 44.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, so Neil Young, if you're out there listening,
Let's get that signature model.
Signature model coming your way.
Yeah.
Jason, I can't thank you enough. This is I was telling the folks before we started this, December 14th of 2019 was my birthday.
Yeah.
My wife got us tickets to come do the tour, and then 3 months later, COVID shut down the world. So I, at the time, was going to bring my Uncle Frank, who's actually here today on that tour. And we've been nerding out on guitars ever since. So for you to be able to take the time and sit here with us, I'm so blessed and humbled and thankful that you took this time to do this with us, man.
And welcome. I'm glad you finally made it.
So awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Mr. Jason Ahner from the Martin Guitar Factory here in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. We will see you next time on another episode of Backstage Bucks County.